Have you ever experienced someone completely shutting you down, refusing to speak to you, or acting as if you don't exist? Not for hours, but for days or even weeks. A silence so deliberate that it fills every room you enter. A void so calculated that it becomes a presence in itself. If so, you've experienced one of the most psychologically devastating forms of emotional abuse, the narcissistic silent treatment. I'm Grace Channing. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a woman who had a devastating experience in a relationship with a narcissist. And I wrote a book about that experience, which details my journey of survival in a toxic relationship. The silent treatment isn't just someone needing time to gather their thoughts. It's not a healthy pause during an argument. When wielded by a narcissist, silence becomes a weapon designed to punish, control, and ultimately break you down. I remember the first time I became aware of this silent abuse. We were having a minor disagreement about something so trivial I can't even recall what it was, but I do remember the sudden shift in his demeanor. One moment we were talking, and the next, he was gone. Not physically, but emotionally. His eyes became vacant when looking in my direction, as if I had suddenly become transparent. He would walk past me in our home as if I didn't exist. His gaze sliding over me without recognition. I spent hours analyzing what I could have possibly done to deserve such treatment, desperately trying to identify when I had crossed some invisible line. Hours turned into days, and days stretched into weeks, and I found myself living like a ghost in my own home. The silence was deafening, filling every corner with its oppressive weight. This silence treatment wasn't an isolated incident. It happened frequently. I tried everything to end these frozen standoffs. I apologized, though I wasn't sure what for. I attempted conversations about neutral topics. I even tried acting as if nothing was wrong. Nothing worked until he decided that the punishment had lasted long enough. Then, as sudden as it began, it would end. He would reappear, acting as if the previous days or weeks of calculated silence had never happened. It was never discussed. This cycle repeated throughout our relationship, becoming more frequent and lasting longer as time went on. Each episode left me feeling increasingly desperate, confused, and fundamentally unworthy of basic human acknowledgement. What makes the silent treatment so devastating is that it targets one of our most fundamental human needs: connection and acknowledgement. From the time we were little babies, humans require interaction to thrive. The studies have showed orphan children who receive adequate physical care but minimal emotional engagement show profound developmental challenges. Our brains are wired for connection. It's a biological necessity. What makes this silent treatment different from ordinary cooling off periods? The difference lies in the intent and the pattern. In healthy relationships, people might need space to process emotions before discussing difficult issues. This type of temporary distance is communicated It is usually preceded by something like, I need some time to think. And it has a reasonable end point. The narcissistic silent treatment is weaponized silence. It's designed to control your behavior by creating fear of triggering another episode. It devalues your worth by implying you don't deserve basic acknowledgement. It shifts power by demonstrating that they can withdraw completely while you cannot. It helps them to avoid accountability by replacing normal conflict resolution with punishment. Perhaps most significantly, this tactic allows the narcissist to inflict tremendous emotional damage while maintaining plausible deniability. After all, they haven't done anything that an outsider could point to. They've simply not spoken. This invisibility makes it particularly difficult to identify and address. During these periods of silence, narcissists experience a sense of power and control while watching you become increasingly desperate for recognition and reconnection. Your growing distress and eventual submission feed their need for superiority. The effects of chronic silent treatment extends far beyond momentary discomfort. As someone who has experienced this abuse for years, I can attest to its profound psychological impact. First, it creates pervasive uncertainty and anxiety. You never know when you might trigger another episode, so you begin to monitor your every word and action. This hypervigilance is exhausting, and it erodes your sense of spontaneity and joy. Second, it systematically destroys your self-worth. When someone looks at you as if you're invisible, it sends a powerful message. You're not significant enough to be acknowledged. And over time, this message becomes internalized, creating deep-seated beliefs about your fundamental worthiness. Third, it forces you into a role of emotional caretaker. You become responsible for managing the narcissist's emotions, tiptoeing around triggers, and working desperately to restore connection. This one-sided emotional labor is draining and fundamentally unfair. Fourth, it isolates you from others. When you're consumed with trying to navigate the dynamics, you have less energy for other relationships. Plus, the nature of this abuse is difficult to explain. They're just not talking to me. Well, that doesn't capture the psychological torture of being systematically erased. Fifth, it creates trauma bonds that make leaving extremely difficult. The pattern of emotional abandonment, followed by the relief of reconnection, creates powerful biochemical responses similar to addiction. For me, the impact was profound. I lost touch with my own thoughts and feelings and friends, becoming so focused on reading Neil's moods and avoiding triggers that I couldn't identify what I needed for myself. My once confident voice became hesitant. I developed physical symptoms, insomnia, digestive issues, chronic tension, and even cancer. By the time I recognized what was happening, the damage was extensive. I had been systematically trained to doubt my perceptions, to minimize my needs, and accept treatment that no human being should tolerate. If you're currently experiencing the silent treatment, know this. You deserve acknowledgement. You deserve communication. You deserve to be treated as a full human being worthy of engagement, even during conflict. Recognize the silent treatment for what it is: abuse. It isn't just someone needing space or processing emotions. It's a deliberate tactic designed to control and punish you. Naming it accurately is the first step towards addressing it and beginning your awakening. Resist the urge to earn back communication. When subject to the silent treatment, we often frantically try to regain connection through apologies, gestures, or behavioral changes. This response is exactly what the narcissist wants. It reinforces their power to withhold or grant connection based on your compliance. During my relationship with Neil, I became so desperate for reconnection that I would abandon my own needs, apologize for things I hadn't done, and try to change in ways that compromised my identity. This pattern only deepened the damage and encouraged future episodes. Understand that you cannot fix someone who uses the silent treatment as a control tactic. This behavior stems from deep-seated personality patterns that are extremely resistant to change. You cannot love, accommodate, or perfect yourself enough to stop this cycle of abuse. The only reliable solution is to remove yourself from it. Healing from the silent treatment's effects can take time and intentional effort. The damage isn't just to the relationship. It's to your sense of self, your trust in your perceptions, and your understanding of what healthy connection looks like. When I finally escaped my relationship with Neil, I discovered that the silent treatment had altered my expectations so profoundly that I was pathetically grateful for even the most basic acknowledgement from others. I had been conditioned to believe that having my existence recognized was a privilege rather than a fundamental right. Recalibrating these distorted expectations was a major part of my healing journey. I had to consciously remind myself that in healthy relationships, communication isn't weaponized or withheld as punishment. Disagreements might lead to temporary distance, but not to deliberately erase another person's humanity. Perhaps most importantly, I learned to listen to the silence within myself, the voice I had silenced to accommodate Neil's demands and avoid triggering his withdrawal. Reconnecting with my own thoughts, my own feelings and desires after years of suppressing them was a little terrifying, but also exhilarating. As I healed, I became more discerning about the relationships I allowed in my life. I developed a deep appreciation for people who communicate directly and respectfully, even in conflict. I learned to recognize early warning signs of communication being used as a control tactic rather than a bridge for connection. If you're recovering from this form of abuse, be patient with yourself. The hypervigilance, anxiety, and fear of abandonment don't disappear overnight. Your nervous system has been trained to associate silence with danger, and it will take time to rewire these responses. The silent treatment thrives in secrecy and shame. By bringing it into the light, naming it, discussing it, acknowledging its devastating impact, we reduce its power over us. If you're currently enduring this form of abuse, hear these words carefully. This is not about your worthiness. It is not about anything you've done or failed to do. It's about a person using one of the cruelest psychological tactics available to control and diminish you. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be acknowledged, even in conflict. These aren't privileges. They're fundamental human rights that no one has the authority to withhold from you. The path out of this type of relationship is rarely straightforward, and it's often frightening. But on the other side is a world where your voice matters, where your presence is acknowledged, where disagreements don't lead to emotional abandonment. I know this because I've walked the path. The silence that once filled my home and suffocated my spirit has been replaced with authentic communication, genuine connection, and the beautiful sound of my own voice. No longer hesitant, no longer afraid, but clear and confident in its truth. This is what the healing path can do. Thank you for listening to my story today. And if it resonates with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Together, we can break the silence around this destructive form of emotional abuse. I hope you find this helpful as you continue seeking peace and joy in your life. I have created a guided meditation to help you begin your healing journey. You'll find the link in the description below. It's completely free. It is my gift to you and a starting place on the healing path.